right, welcome back to EchoVideo Podcast. This is episode 4. Today, joining me as always, my co-hosts Bart Streppel and Shawn Gorsline. How's it going, guys?
Doing good. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good.
All right, and today we have a special guest, Bradley Palko. Bradley, welcome to the show.
Yo. Thanks.
No problem. So, guys, just before we get started into today's topic, I just wanted to ask, was there anything that got announced this week that kind of brought any hype up or anything to be put on our radar for the upcoming this year?
I think this was announced either yesterday late or early this morning. It's just the Tomb Raider anime series that Netflix is doing. It's just a continuation after the 3 big games on Xbox. And yeah, pretty amped for that. So we'll see where that goes.
Sounds interesting. Yep. Shawn, what about you?
I don't know too much. I know there's the Godzilla and Kong trailer went up not that long ago. Looks interesting. Yeah. I saw the first Godzilla film. I didn't actually end up seeing the second one. I didn't really think that Godzilla film was amazing, but I enjoyed Kong, so I'm interested to know how this film's going to be.
The first Godzilla film was basically the U.S. Marines starring Godzilla. He was more of a guest in that movie. No, that's probably the biggest thing that happened this week so far was Kong versus Godzilla. Bradley, what about you? Was there anything that was brought to your radar?
Other than the Godzilla versus Kong movie, no. That was pretty much it. I'd watched it a couple times, and looks kind of cool. I'm the same with Shawn. I haven't seen the second one. I just saw the original. And yeah, I mean, it doesn't look too bad.
No, for sure. So it's been, a little bit of a dry week, I would say, for releases and stuff. So hopefully we get a little more in the coming weeks. For me, I just think that there was an Animal Crossing update. To me personally, it doesn't look too exciting, but it's something to the base game. So that's something to just look a little bit more forward to. Other than that, let's get into today's topic, and it's kind of a different topic, or maybe a little bit of a different one than we're used to. It's movies that kind of gave us an emotional response, or movies that kind of had us going, like, goddamn, what are we like movies that we kind of almost lost the sense that we were watching a movie, and that we were kind of in the scene itself. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so the first film I'm going to talk about today, guys, is Dogtooth. That's from 2009. And it's a Greek film by director Yorgos Lanthimos. And the reason why this film had an emotional reaction out of me was just how goddamn uncomfortable it was. Beginning to end, everything about this film is it's designed to make you not sit comfortably in your seat, I would assume. Just a quick plot synopsis. Basically, everything about this film is this film is about a mother and a father that keep their 3 kids, locked up in a house where basically they're not allowed to leave or have an interaction with the outside world. They're only allowed to stay within the confines of this tiny house, which is, I believe, a garden, a pool, and then the house itself. They've been grown up to believe that everything outside of the house is not for them. Like, they can't leave the property. So they're just kind of in this weird cult feeling. It's not a cult, but it's just got a culty vibe about the house itself, and it's a bit weird when you watch the movie, because I think at one of the opening scenes, they're having dinner, and one of the sisters asks if you can pass the telephone, and then she hands him the salt. So the parents are lying to their kids to keep them safe, what they believe is safe from the outside world, and the father hires the security guard to come to their house and basically have sex with the son, so they're not having incestuous relationships amongst the children in the house. That's true for the first half of the movie, and then other parts happen to make it even worse. Just spoilers ahead for this film. It's a great film. I would recommend watching it if you are okay with being uncomfortable. So the next part, all the films we're going to talk about are going to have heavy spoiler warning. We're going to be going into them pretty in depth. But as we go on in the film, the way it's shot, so the other parts of this film that makes me uncomfortable is the way it's shot. every kind of frame with the framing of the shots are kind of framed just a way where they're not fully in like the characters aren't usually in center, or they're only centered on a certain object while other people are talking in the background. It's shot on film, so there's a lot of kind of film imperfections in the film and stuff, and it's just uncomfortable beginning to end. A lot of uncomfortable violence. Like, it's not a lot of violence, but when the violence happens, it just, for some reason, it hits me way harder. And I mean, I've seen crazier, way more violent movies, but for some reason, it just makes the violence in this movie makes me way more uncomfortable than the violence in a movie like Saw. I don't know why. That's just the way I reacted to it. So I'm gonna just switch the conversation. Have any of you guys seen this film before?
No. Yeah, I watched it last night just to prepare for this, and it was not quite what I expected. Like you were saying, so it's shot on film, which I didn't know, which makes sense now looking back at it, but especially the framing, like, people will be having a conversation and they'll just be like filming, I don't know, they're like underneath their torso, or somebody will be like washing a car and it's just filming the trunk. Like, everything is just kind of off center, and the colors are always like washed out a bit. And I think there's just so much tension, and it's so uncomfortable that, like, when the violence does happen, it's very sudden, it's very quick, but it's also very real, and it just really catches you off guard. Like, you're expecting it to happen, but when it does, you're still not quite prepared for it. And I think it's like these kids have been locked up for, I don't know, I'd say like maybe
20,
early 20s or so.
Yeah, 20 years or so. And sorry, just to kind of add another point that I had is that all the kids of these parents act like they're like 10 or 13, but they're all like 20-year-old adults in like their 20s, maybe even 30s, and it just makes it so uncomfortable the way they act in the film. So sorry, just to kind of add another point there, Bart, before you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the things that makes the violence so unsettling. Like, this girl will just take a knife and, like, suddenly in like a quick cut, it'll just cut her brother's arm. But I think in her mind, she's just like, you know, you hit your sister with a stick kind of thing. But instead she took a knife and just sliced his arm open. And you're like, holy crap. And at times they get bored and they're like, they just start experimenting because they can't leave the house. They have this garden, but it's kind of fenced in. And they just start to like chloroform themselves because they had like this book of like this biology book. And they start like putting things together. And it's so strange. And then there's this cat that enters the garden. And the brother is just being curious. You know, he's never seen a cat before in his life. And he takes these hedge clippers and just like plunges onto the cat and like basically just guts the cat. And you're like, what the fuck is happening? And then the dad comes in later and he's like all torn up. Like he cuts his own vest and his pants and whatnot and sprays blood on himself to make it look like the cat is like an incredibly dangerous animal that they should, you know, he did right to kill it, but he should never do it again. And it's just so strange the way they manipulate the kids' minds. It's really interesting, incredibly unsettling.
Oh yeah,
and it's just oof.
It's a great film. And just before I have the final point, I want to say, did any of you guys, Shawn or Bradley, did you guys see or even heard of this film before we were talking about it today?
No, I have not heard of it at all. But my God, that sounds it sounds like there's a lot to. I mean, it sounds very interesting actually. Like, just based on how you guys described it. Like, I mean, I can't say too much obviously because I haven't seen it, but I don't know. I think it would be interesting to watch.
Yes,
what about you, Bradley?
I hadn't seen it yet, but I had heard of Yorgos Lanthimos before, but I haven't seen any of his films. And I haven't seen it, but just from hearing what you guys are talking about and kind of, you know, describing the film in certain scenes or whatever, it kind of feels like the film was clearly written, I'm assuming by the guy that directed it, right? If he wrote it, it was probably based off of like
as well.
It was like based off of real cult like instances or events. or maybe he heard a story about a family that did that. It sounds very like it could have happened. It doesn't sound too far-fetched that it was something that some weird writer came up with. It sounds like something would have that would have happened. And then just going off of like how, Hunter, you said earlier on that it's not violent in the way that like horror films are like. It's just, and it was still not as, it still like was unsettling, even though it wasn't as violent as other stuff are. I think it's, at first when you were describing it, I was imagining like 10-year-old kids, like 10-year-old kids or whatever. But now knowing that they're in their 20s and 30s, I'm like, okay, this isn't as creepy as you're making it sound at first. Cause I thought if these kids were being forced to have sex with someone, I'm like, okay, this is about to get messed up. But if they're adults, then it doesn't sound as bad, but it's still insane to think about like parents like kind of manipulating these kids or their kids. Yeah. But it's unsettling because in the back of your mind they've been doing this for 20 some odd years. So knowing that these kids were started out young and were told these things throughout their whole life, and that's what's unsettling, because you're like, imagine knowing one way and then finding out, I don't know how it ends or anything, but I'm imagining that they're like discovering things throughout the film that they didn't know beforehand, and kind of just like opening up your mind to new things and what things are, like a cat. Yeah, just something as simple as that. Like it's just blowing their minds what things are that they weren't taught, right?
Sorry to cut you off there, but the last point I wanted to make about this film was also the way I even found out about this film was I just Googled most disturbing films ever made, and there was a list of 10, and I believe it was number 5, and I think it was number 5, and I just thought, I read the plot synopsis, and I thought that sounds interesting, and I was going to watch this with my parents because it said dark comedy and drama, and I thought, why not? And I looked up the ending of the film, and I was like, maybe not. Maybe I won't watch this. So I'm very happy I watched this by myself and not with my parents, because that would have been really awkward, because there's some pretty uncomfortable scenes in this film. And the most uncomfortable scene I think I ever saw in the whole film was just the way it was shot, the sound design, and everything. Is the ending scene when the girl gets one of these, the older sister gets with this, I think it's like a 5-pound dumbbell, and it's like one of those like cheap ones you buy at Walmart, and it's just one of those, maybe made it out of some kind of metal, and they're kind of got covered in rubber. It's kind of like this old peeled off rubber piece of that, and she's just looking at herself in the mirror with it, and she just punches herself in the face with it like 4 times, and the sound design and the way it's shot is just awful, and I flinched every single time she hit herself in the face, and I was like, oh my god, this needs to end. And every time I think it's gonna end, she hits herself another time, and it's just, please stop. So that's mainly the reason. It's just an uncomfortable film to watch. At the end of the day, I still recommend it to people to watch. It is really good the way it's filmed. I mean, if you are fine with being uncomfortable, I'd recommend watching it by yourself. I would not recommend watching it with friends or family at all. But it is a film I would recommend. So, moving on, Bart, what was the film you brought today?
Well, today I brought Manchester by the Sea, the one produced by Amazon. I don't know if any of you have seen it.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Let me know. Yeah. All right. So the scene I want to talk about is when Casey Affleck is at the police station. So this is a flashback that kind of explains what set off the entire series of events that happened, like why he's here, what has happened, what's to follow, all that good stuff. So basically, he's at a police station and he's getting interviewed by these 2 cops. And he's just explaining he was having a party with some friends. It's like 3-4 in the morning. Things got out of hand. His wife was trying to sleep, so she's like, okay, shut this party down, go to bed, no more. So she kicks everybody out. Also, mind you, he's like, I don't know, 45, 40 or so. It's not like a teenage party. But anyway, yeah. So he's just partying it up with some buddies, whatnot. Wife shuts down the party, but he's still like, you know, drunk, high, whatever. So he goes back upstairs for a minute, notices it's really cold. So he lights a quick fire, and he's got his wife, 2 kids in the house, whatnot. And he just kind of stumbles out to the nearest corner shop to get some booze to continue the party. And halfway there, he's like, did I put the fire grate, like the thing that covers whatever the fireplace to keep logs from rolling out? It's like, did I cover that? And he's like, a small moment of contemplation. He's like, yeah, I did. So he keeps going, gets his booze, whatnot, and then comes back, and his house is just engulfed in flames. They managed to pull his wife out, but his 2 kids died in the fire. And this is like, it's not like a reenactment, really. It's just him sitting at a desk explaining it while the camera just really slowly just, I don't know, zooms in on him. And it's like a 3-minute unbroken scene of him just explaining what happened. And it's just gut-wrenching. Especially that scene where he's like walking to the beer store. Because like, now he has the knowledge of what happened, sorry. And he's like getting the beer, but like during that moment of contemplation, he said, well, recollecting it, he's like, I figured it was okay. So he kept going. And like just that line alone, it's just so heartbreaking because like, it's almost like a 50-50, like you either keep going, get your booze, or you go back and check on the house. Like, I figured it's okay. And you just know what happens. And it's such a heartbreaking scene. And the acting is just phenomenal. And it's just, oof, it's sad. Sorry, Hunter, you wanted to chime in there.
I just remember the scene, like, I believe it's the same scene. And the cops basically say, like, I mean, like they don't even give him a punishment or anything because technically, I mean, it was just an accident. He didn't mean to do it on purpose or anything. And as soon as he's leaving the cop station, he just grabs an officer's gun and tries to shoot himself because basically, I guess he just felt like he needed to be criminally charged for his actions, and they ended up letting him go free pretty much. And then he just felt really terrible, and he just grabs the officer. I mean, the music, the way it's shot and everything is it's very, like you said, it's heartbreaking to watch, and it's a rather heartbreaking film. And sorry, I would like have any of you, Shawn or Bradley, have you guys seen the film at all?
I haven't, but I've seen the clip, that long clip of him explaining everything, that story, and I don't know, it's multiple movies that have any kind of shot like that where a character is just telling you like the worst thing that happened in their life, just like, and there's no like visuals, it's just them telling it to you. Like those I find are always like the worst. Somehow without the visuals, I find I relate to it more. And yeah, I definitely understand the like gut-wrenching feeling. I definitely felt that, even without like the context of the rest of the movie. Like just that scene alone, it just and the acting was fantastic.
Yeah.
Real quick, sorry, real quick. That's all right. I was gonna go back to your moment, like where he takes the gun out of the police officer's holster. I think he goes into the police station confessing like everything immediately. Like he brings up the drugs, the drinking, what he did, what he didn't do. Like, I think he's expecting to get charged and punished, but he doesn't because, like, it's an accident. And, like, it's just even more sad when he runs out and grabs the police officer's gun to try and shoot himself because there's not a single moment of hesitation. Like, he starts pulling the trigger right away, but it's under safety, obviously. But, like, oof.
Yeah.
It's just sad. Sorry, Bradley. I didn't mean to interrupt you there. I just wanted to get that.
Oh, no, that's fine. I've seen that, just like Shawn. I haven't seen the movie, but I've heard a lot of good things, and it's just one of those movies that's on the list of things to see, right? And I know Casey's a great actor, and I've seen the clip too a dozen times, and it's really good. Like I wasn't expecting. It was kind of like I've seen Casey in movies before, but it was the next level of his acting where he just ascended to something different. At least that's what I got from that scene. Mm-hmm. So and I can imagine what the rest of the movie's like. when it comes to his acting or anyone else in the film. But I think the hold on his telling his story to the police officers rather than showing you, it's kind of like putting the viewers in the room with them and just kind of sitting there and stewing in the story that you already know but don't know how he feels, I guess. And you get his real emotions in the moment. And again, with the part where he kind of wants to punish himself, like he knows that he should be punished in a way, and because they failed him, he's just going to take it out on himself because he should at least be punished for something he thinks was completely his fault. And that, I think, that kind of like just puts the cherry on top. It's like it's one after another bit of just like crazy emotion.
Mm-hmm.
No, yeah, for sure. And just to kind of reminded me of this show I recently watched, just to go off what you said, Shawn, with the close up and the kind of slow push in. I was watching this show, can't remember the title, but basically that exact kind of moment happened where it's just this slow zoom into the character's face and just all this emotion, and it's just absolutely heartbreaking. You know, you can't look away. It's just them. It's just their face. It's just like sometimes it's amplified by the score, and then the score just dipped away and it just went to silence, and the character just bursts into tears, and it's just, man, I want to die. Like, it's just so heartbreaking to watch that kind of stuff. Oh, so that's the last point I have to make on the film. Again, yeah, it's a great film. I think, I mean, with that film, I feel like it's not talked about as much as it should be. I wouldn't say it's underrated or even a hidden gem. I mean, I know a lot of people saw it, but I just feel like it's not talked about as much as it should have been. That's the final note I'll have to make. Did you guys have any final kind of things to say about the film, or should we move on?
Yeah, just real tiny quick thing. You said that like it's not talked about as much. I think when people do talk about it, which is rare, just like in YouTube comments, it's like everybody says this is one of those movies you watch one time and never again. And I just never really understood that, because personally I've seen it like, I don't know, 7 or 8 times. Weirdly enough, I adore this movie. And it just feels kind of almost ridiculous to, like, you know, you have a heartbreaking movie, a very real movie, and you watch it once and then just kind of discard it almost. Like, maybe like things stick with you, but it just seems odd to just, I don't know, classify it as once and never again. I don't know, that's just me.
For sure. Anybody else, or should we move on?
Just on that once and never again kind of thing, I agree with you. I don't think that a lot of films should be labeled that way, because a lot of the films that are labeled that way are like a film that has typically some big reveal at the end. Not all the time, obviously, but usually that's what it is. And it's like, I always find with those kind of films, you want to watch them again because then you have tons more things to look for. Mm-hmm. So I think that's just like kind of a poor way to look at a film, to be like, oh, well, now I know everything. Like, I don't think you do. I think you should watch it again. Maybe you'll find something new about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, sorry, just to kind of go off what you guys were saying, there's a couple films. I mean, I watched a lot of movies in high school, and I just, for example, Rosemary's Baby, when I watched that in high school, I really hated it. I don't know why. I was told it was one of the scariest movies ever made, and I watched it, and I was like, this is the most boring movie ever made, and I never watched it again. And then I think recently, after my 3rd year in college, I rewatched it, and I really loved it. I thought it was really well made. I thought it was fantastically told. I thought it was a great film. So yeah, like that's you guys make a great point. Movies should definitely be watched more than once, even if it is hard. Even if it is a hard to watch subject matter, that shouldn't be a judging feature of why you need to watch it or rewatch it. So I believe we've said all that needs to be said about Manchester by the Sea. So Shawn, what's the movie you brought today?
So I had a film that originally I was going to talk about on episode 2, but I held off. I'll talk about it now. It's Upgrade. It's a film that came out in 2018. It's an action sci-fi film. It's kind of your typical sort of dealing with a robot or an AI sort of thing. And it's really, really well done. But the one thing that with any kind of film like this I find is there's that sort of if you're dealing with some sort of like robot that's or AI or something like that, they always kind of bring in these like human emotions into it. Eventually, at least, they kind of build up to like, oh, look, the robot or the AI has feelings now. and that works in a film fine, but I love this film for the fact that they really don't do that. They kind of actually make it believable in a way where like an AI is like told, this is what you have to do, this is your objective, and it sticks to that. It takes multiple courses of action to do what it needs to do. Just to summarize the film for those who might not know it, it's basically a film where this guy and his wife are forcibly put into an accident, and the wife of the guy is killed. I think the main character's name is Gray, and he is also paralyzed from the neck down from this accident, and he lives his life that way for a little while until he is given the opportunity to essentially move again and live his life normally again through an AI surgery to put like a chip in his neck to help him with that. But what he finds out later is this AI that's put into him is an AI, and it can communicate with him. And the AI also has the ability to control if he can move or if he cannot. It's just allowed to do that for whatever reason, but it does bring up a lot of interesting story points because of that. And obviously, I think we kind of put spoilers. We've made it clear there's spoilers. Yeah. So the way the movie kind of, for the most part, there's a lot of combat throughout the movie. And I love how the combat scenes are done as well. I think it's a really prime example of shooting a film to represent the story in a clever way. Whenever the AI fights, it's very like exact shots, but whenever Gray himself fights, it's very loose and a lot of shaky shots during that.
Sorry, just to kind of go off that, I remember, I believe watching behind the scenes, they actually like locked the camera or stabilized it when Stem fights for Greg, the AI. Yep. They locked the camera to, I believe, around his neck, so it almost seems like that's the prime focus. Mm-hmm. So just kind of an interesting, like you said, just a lot of motivation was put into the filming of this movie. It definitely benefits from it, and like you said. So sorry, you can go back to what you were saying.
Yeah, I was just going to mention the end of the film. Essentially, they don't take that usual route where it's like, oh, there's a problem, like there's a twist, but the twist just it ends badly, and I respect that, because a lot of films would be like, oh no, something bad's about to happen. Oh, it's all good though, we got it sorted. Like it's like, oh no, everything is not as it seems. It's actually a lot worse, and that's the end of the movie. Oh no, because essentially in the end, Stem ends up winning and ends up becoming Gray, and Gray essentially doesn't exist anymore. I mean, he does, but not in a good way, at least. And I think that's the part of the film that I respect the most, because I love seeing a film to take like that kind of jump, that risk, if you will, to tell a story and commit to maybe not the most satisfying ending, but an ending that makes sense for the film.
Yeah. I watched this movie again for the podcast, and I do remember that the one fight scene. I think it's the first one where he involves Stem, and he basically like
is that the one in the kitchen?
Off.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, where with the knife, and he basically cuts the dude's head off with the jaw. I remember watching that fight scene and just being like, oh, this is kind of cool. And then that happened. I almost jumped out of my seat, like cheering, like, let's go! Like, come on! Like, it was so exciting. I don't know why I got so excited when I saw that. And the movie's weirdly funny as well. Like, there's some actually really comedic moments in it, just because he's pretending to be handicapped. Because I think he can't reveal that he's had the surgery, so he's pretending to be handicapped, and then he just ends up being like this really awesome. Like there's some weirdly funny moments in the movie that just kind of have you chuckling every now and again, which I thought is kind of a highlight film. Any did so Bradley, did you see the film or have heard of it, or what are some of your opinions on it?
I had heard of it, but I hadn't seen it. I saw the trailer for it a couple times, and I know it was written by Lee Winnell, who did the first Saw movie, and he was even the guy that was in the first. One of the guys. I think there was like Cary Elwes was the two guys that were stuck in that basement room or whatever that are like, and the one, Cary Elwes who's known for like the Princess Bride or whatever. He like saws off his foot or whatever, but I'm going off on Saw, but it's the guy that did that movie. He was in the movie itself, and I had seen a handful of his stuff, so I knew how crazy his like mind works with writing, and he works with James Wan a lot, and but I hadn't seen this film, and I remember seeing the trailer, and I was like, "This looks insane!" Just the whole trailer is basically like fight scenes, and I'm like, "This looks crazy. I need to see this." And 2-3 years later, I still haven't seen it, but but just from Shawn's description, it actually sounds really interesting, and the fact that the end of it is basically like a not your typical twist ending where it has like a happy ending or whatever. It sounds like a twist ending that he writes into his other films like Saw, where it's like not the happiest ending, but it's still a cool, interesting twist. That's what I like. I like happy endings for specific types of movies, but if it's sci-fi or thriller or horror, no one wants to see them get out. I mean, you want to see one person maybe get away because that's going to be a sequel, but it's like, no, it's kind of cool to see when no one gets out, and you're like, as sadistic as that sounds, it's a movie, I don't want to see I want to see a happy ending in real life, but not in movies.
I think the Terminator would be a sequel to that.
Yeah, that's true.
Essentially.
That's true.
It's just a prequel.
That's true.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
No, it's and I mean even the effects in the film, like the special effects are honestly really, really good, and I believe it had like super short budget for the film.
Yeah, it wasn't very much.
And there was like some really good wide shots or establishing shots of cities that looked honestly like you could have put them in Blade Runner or like Blade Runner 2049, and you would have thought they were right at home. Like it's a really well made film, and yeah, like you said, it should have been mentioned in episode 2 there, and it is I believe it is a bit of a hidden gem, and I believe it definitely deserves to be checked out more than it is, and there is some fight scenes that get you up in your seat, or there's even the twist ending has you kind of, I mean, I was shocked when I didn't expect that. So even the twist ending kind of hits you out of nowhere. So I do agree with you on that. It's definitely a great film. Bradley, what's the film you brought today?
So my first pick was Uncut Gems, with Adam Sandler by the Safdie brothers, who are known for having like a high stakes, super stressful, their style is very intense. And they're even kind of like Tarantino, their films tend to be, or at least for me, they feel like they're longer than they actually are. But just because of the stress level. But this film, it's essentially Adam Sandler as this jeweler in New York City. And he's got like a ton of gambling debts. And he's always promising and making new promises to this loan shark and to other people, trying to pawn off like jewelry to make up for his debt that he owes them, and kind of weasel his way through life and paying off his debts to these people, to kind of cover up his terrible life of him, having a girlfriend on the side from his wife and cheating and all this stuff. He's basically a terrible person played by probably one of the coolest guys who, I'm a fan of Adam Sandler no matter what movie it is. He's still hilarious to me. And in this movie, it was insane to even see him as someone who wasn't Adam Sandler playing a guy, right? It was like, it felt like it was a completely different person to me. And that's kind of what grounded me in the film, because the rest of the film messed me up badly. I watched it with Hunter and a couple other, I think it was 2 other friends, and I was stressed out the entire time. And I don't usually get stressed out in movies, so it was like a first for me when it comes to high intensity from start to finish. There might be some moments where they calm down for a few minutes, but it just gets more intense.
Even then, there's really no moment for you to kind of catch your bearings and take a breath. It's just the whole movie is just going.
Yeah.
There's no stopping it once it's going, and then and when you're and it's like you said, it's friggin' Adam Sandler, you know, the Billy Madison, Happy Gilmore, you know, and he's and it's not him at all in this movie. He's like punching people and cursing and swearing the whole time, being mean, and it's like, what is this movie? It's like you said, it's just a thrill ride all the way through, and you're just white knuckling your chair pretty much the whole time, waiting for it to end. And it's for sure.
I think I watched an interview a while back that Adam Sandler said that the Safdie brothers tried to get him to do this movie 10 years ago. And imagine this coming out 10 years ago instead of last year or the year before. Like, this probably wouldn't have gone so well. Not because it's Adam Sandler or it's the Safdie brothers, but I think the Safdie brothers have gotten better since that time. I don't know exactly what they were making at that time 10 years ago, but...
Sorry, I believe they directed Good Time with Robert Pattinson. Yeah, before.
Yeah.
And that's a little bit of the same stress wise, but it's definitely still worth watching. It's a lot of the similar kind of style, but not nearly as stressful as or Uncut Gems, I would say.
Yeah. And this film, I went into it not knowing. It was one of those films that I didn't want to know who was in it, who else was in it. I knew, actually Adam Sandler. I don't think I'd even seen the trailer for it before watching it, so it probably added to the whole mystique of the film of finding out who was in the film. And I'm a fan of basically everyone that's in the movie. Lakeith Stanfield, who's one of the guys with Kevin Durant, the basketball player that comes in and tries to get his jewelry from Sandler. And it's just even that scene alone, just them getting stuck in the thing and fighting and the back and forth between them yelling at each other is just, oh my God. The peaceful person in me is just like, can we just calm down? And I know it's not going to happen. So I just have to wait for it to end. And when you're waiting and everything just feels longer than it actually is, it's just, oh man, it's stressing me out just thinking about it. But that's one thing that kind of surprised me, because you don't get a lot of movies that has that's just so intense throughout the whole film. You get live action, or not live action. You get thrillers or sci-fi or something like that where they're where you get like a scene or two where it's intense and then it kind of calms down. This film was insane. The damn moment for me was I'd probably say the ending. Howard, played by Sandler, kind of gets his comeuppance. He gets his what I don't think he gets what he deserves, but he gets it anyways.
Yeah,
I don't think in this scenario, I don't think he deserves it, but it happens anyways, and it's crazy.
It also kind of happens out of nowhere. Like, I mean, I didn't expect it. I was thinking like the traditional Hollywood ending where, they won the bet, they got their money back, and everyone would hug and high five at the end. And the next thing you know, he's gets shot in the face, and you're like, oh,
all right,
that's cool too. Billy Madison's dead, I guess. I didn't expect that. Like, darn.
Yeah. I think it was the whole it felt like a robber, or a thief, robbing a place, stealing the winnings, and then killing the guy anyways. That sort of scenario. Instead of letting him go, yes, you I got my money finally, but at the same time, it was more like an F you to, this is for stressing me out this whole time kind of thing. So he just did that, and it was insane.
Also, just before I get the other people that are in this film, which I found weird, is the voice of Elsa from Frozen. So we got Frozen, we got Elsa, and we got Billy Madison all in the same film. I just thought that was really funny and weird and just super weird. So, anyways, Bart and Shawn, what are your thoughts on the film? If you've seen it, or if you haven't, what are your thoughts? If you haven't seen it, what are your thoughts if you have seen it?
So I just have like a couple like small things. Most of it's already been said on the actual movie, and then the other ones are like kind of on my viewing experience. So one thing that I think really added to the stress, which was obviously intentional, anytime Howard got like any funds, he would like immediately bet all of his funds again, then get in crap, then he'd make it out miraculously, then bet all of his funds again, and it's just like this downward spiral of him just. Anytime he had a chance to get out, I think he was like too addicted to it all just to walk away. So he just invested more. Like, I can make more. I can make more. I can make more. And it was just like, just get out, please. You're hurting me.
Yeah, for sure.
The other thing is when I was watching it, so it came to this like small indie theater, and I took a bunch of my buddies, like all my roommates, we all went to go see it. And like, I had no idea what it was about. I just, same as you, Bradley, just walked in, Adam Sandler. What could go wrong? So we were all just watching it, having a good time until like 5 minutes in. Then it was just like dead silent in the theater. Like it was almost eerie. Like no laughs, no noises, no one was coughing. It was just like dead silent for the rest of the runtime. And then as soon as the credits rolled, like the director's name came up, like the Raffi brothers? Yes.
Safdie brothers.
Safdie, yes, thank you. My buddy Tommy just like yelled audibly, "Fuck!" And this elderly couple in front of us just turned around, and he's like, "Oh crap, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to." And they're like, "No, it's all right. We feel exactly the same way." And it was so funny because they were like, I don't know, pushing like mid-80s, and it was like, that is hysterical. That is so funny. Everybody was just like engrossed in this incredibly stressful moment. And even my buddy Kieran, who knew exactly how the game was going to end that they were betting on, because like it was an actual game, he was just so invested in it and so stressed out that even because he knew what was going to happen, he was still super invested in it. It was just crazy how engrossing that movie was. And I was like sweaty. And afterwards we were going to like, play some beer pong, hang out. And then we all got home, like all 7 of us, and we just kind of sat there in silence and just kind of talked about it for like 2 hours long. And the whole party mood was gone.
You almost have like PTSD after the movie ends. Like you're just like, damn.
Yeah, you're like, I need a shower and like some sad music now. Like
I gotta just take a week to process this.
Yeah, like I'll see you guys in a minute.
I definitely remember going up to my room. Going to my room and just sitting down and just zoning out and listening to music afterwards. I was like, I need to put something fun on to just clear it out of my mind. I remember actually, Hunter, if you remember correctly, I was pissed after that movie because I was like, why make this movie so stressful? I don't ever want to see this movie ever again. And then I just went upstairs.
Well, the funny part I remember is that we were watching it with a couple of friends and that are known to kind of, and I mean, we're watching it with a friend that cracks the most Adam Sandler. And I mean, I think I'd be ashamed of myself if I didn't make a joke. Just kind of like, he just makes the most 69 jokes ever because of Adam Sandler. And we're watching an Adam Sandler movie. And I think we watched it and I might have heard one joke, and then the rest of the movie was just silence. And it's like, I don't think I've ever watched a movie in our dorm room where it was just silence ever. Like someone's talking, usually and it's not like not to be like, someone's talking, I hate the movie. Well, it's someone's either cracking jokes, talking about the movie, that kind of talking. But everyone was just sitting there watching it, and everyone was just like I think everyone in their mind was just like, this needs to end. I'm losing hair because of this movie. Like, I believe that was like the first words when the movie ended. I was like, man, I feel like I lost a bunch of my hair after watching it. Like, that's the one thing I remember was just how eerily silent it was during the whole experience of watching the movie. there was no Adam Sandler jokes the whole time. I was like, someone's got to make a joke. Come on, please. Man. I'm getting scared. Like,
it's because you don't know what's going to happen next, and because the stress level just stayed up the whole way. Even when there was a quiet moment, people were like, I'm afraid to say anything. I'm afraid Sandler or the loan shark's just going to pop out of the movie and punch me or something. Like, holy crap. I need to just experience it all the way through and get through it.
So
absolutely.
Just sorry, before we keep going, Shawn, did you have anything you wanted to add about the movie? You haven't talked yet.
I mean, I think you guys covered it pretty well, but just a general thing on Adam Sandler that I could say is I think a lot of people kind of put Adam Sandler in that general area of just doing like comedy movies. And I mean, he doesn't really help himself when he makes movies like Pixels and stuff, but you know, Adam Sandler's actually a really good actor. So when he's put in like a good role and actually puts like a huge amount of effort in to play that role really well, it's a really like fantastic performance. So if there's like a dramatic Sandler movie, it's usually actually really, really solid.
I think that's a good point to make about Sandler's career. Like, he's only really good as a dramatic actor because he does so many comedies that when he comes in and does an Uncut Gems or
Funny Game or Funny People
or Reign Over Me or something where he's not being funny all the time, it kills because. And I think he shouldn't do more dramatic, like he should do more dramatic roles, but like scarcely, because that's what we appreciate. Like, it cuts away from the funniness, and it makes it that much more enjoyable when he comes in and does something crazy like this. So I think that'd be a smart move for him. Not that he really needs advice from me, but you know,
it's almost like a unintentional advantage for him.
Yeah.
No,
like when he does do a performance like that, he just really sticks out. It was so funny. I think during the Golden Globes, he won Best Actor in a Drama or something. And he, like, during his acceptance speech, he's like, from now on, you guys will always be known as the guys who lost to Adam Sandler. And he's like, he's absolutely right. They lost to Adam Sandler.
If
like,
after this,
incredible.
After this chat, or anyone's listening, should go and watch the Safdie brothers acceptance speech at the AFI, I believe it's the Independent Spirit Awards, and it's them. You can only imagine what it is. I think it's for best drama or best screenplay. I don't remember what it was, but it's the two of them talking and doing their acceptance speech at the same time for like 5 minutes straight. It's
like
just
synchronized.
I'm like, what did I just watch?
Amazing.
It's like watching the movie all over again. I'm like, they're just talking, and they don't break. They don't laugh. They don't stop themselves. They're still going, and I'm like,
that's incredible.
It's crazy.
So just the two final points I want to make about the film before, because I feel like we could go. I mean, we could probably do an entire episode just on this film alone, but. The two final notes I want to make is because of this, Adam Sandler didn't win an Oscar, and he did openly say that if he didn't win an Oscar for this film, he would make Grown Ups 3 Fart Camp. So we can expect that in the future. And because I don't know if he's listening, we are talking about an Adam Sandler movie. I have to say it. 69. I have to say that. That's for our one friend. He might be listening. He might be one of the 5 viewers that are listening, but if you are, that was for you.
This one's for you,
buddy. So anyways, moving on to my next film. That's Sword of the Stranger from 2009. 2007, directed by Masahiro Ando, and that's an anime by Studio Bones, so the same studio that did My Hero Academia, Full Metal Alchemist. And I mean, I've shown this film to a lot of people, And I feel like it doesn't hit home for a lot of people that I've shown. Because, I mean, I showed it to you, Bart. You said you don't remember it. I've shown it to our buddy, our other friend. He fell asleep for the whole movie. I've shown it to 2 other people. One dude was high as hell. And I think other people were not in the room. They just kind of left while I was showing it. And basically this whole movie, it's a build-up. And that's what I think a lot of people don't know about the film. There's a lot of little fight scenes here and there. But the whole film is a build-up to the final fight scene. So you're watching an hour and a half of build-up. And it's good build-up. It's not like it gets boring. There's a lot of little fight scenes that are pretty cool in the film. But, you know, you have the main antagonist who you see how he fights, and then you have the hero of the film, and you see how they fight through the entire film. You're watching them fight and kick ass the whole film. And you're just like, you know these two are going to meet. Like, it's inevitable. And they meet in the halfway point of the film, and they don't even get to finish the fight. They both have to leave halfway through the film. You're like, okay, when this fucking goes down, you know shit's gonna go down. Like, this is what you're like. And then finally the final scene happens, and the final scene is incredible on its own before the final fight scene happens. It's super awesome. There's these people don't. So basically what the film is about is there's this group of people that take this medicine that can't feel pain, and they're like the strongest warriors in China. And then there's this lone samurai that helps this kid escape from these people that are hunting him. And so he's just kind of taking on the job to protect this kid. And basically, you know that this guy's going to find the best fighter of the Chinese army, and then like it's just like this great buildup. And I mean, you have these little scenes in between to keep you entertained, and then finally the final fight scene happens, and it's the greatest thing I've ever seen ever. The greatest fight scene in anime I've ever seen ever. And it's just like, it's just the sound design, the score is kicking in. Like, you never hear the score fully. You always hear this piece of music, and it always gets cuts off. You never get to hear it all the way through. And finally, at the end of the movie, you know what's happening. Like, when I was watching this movie, I was standing up. I was literally pacing around the room watching this. I was up in my seat. I was punching the air. I was like, I was screaming. I was so excited. And then finally, like, the final blow. And again, spoilers, if you haven't seen the film, go watch it. Even if you have to just watch the final scene, just watch the final scene of the movie. That's all I'm asking before you watch this, because this is so much better. The final blow, they both stab each other, and you don't know who won or if they both killed each other or what. And then when you finally figure out who won, you just get to finally sit down and have a breath of fresh air. It's such a great build-up, such a great scene. And every time I show this movie to people, everyone just kind of leaves the room or falls asleep. And I get so angry and triggered at that. I'm like, I remember I showed it to I think the first person I showed it to fell asleep through the movie. And I was like, you need to wake up. Like, I was like hitting him. I was like, please, just for one scene of the movie, you need to stay up. I don't care if you fall asleep through the rest. Just stay up for the last scene. It's fantastic. And no, not you. It was another friend from high school before I met you. But
I tend to fall asleep during movies.
Yeah, it's such a great film. I do recommend it to anyone who sees it. I'm not sure how easy it is to see. I mean, I was able to pick up a Blu-ray of it. It might be on some of the more popular anime streaming services. I'm just wondering, I don't know if you guys have seen it a lot. I know Bradley and Bart have seen it, but I know some of you guys haven't seen it all the way through. If you guys have anything to say about it, please, now's your time to talk. Shawn, you as well, if you guys have seen it. I'm not sure if you remember it or if you've seen it, but it's your time to talk.
I can go first, because I don't have too much to say. I feel like it's better if we leave off on Bradley. But like you said, we watched it together, and my grade 11, 12 years, weren't my proudest. I, infamously kind of disregarded anime and animation in general as childish. So I was probably the guy who fell asleep. So I didn't really watch it. One thing I do remember is the music. Vaguely. See, I'm not the right person to talk on this, because I watched it, but not really. So yeah, that's my experience with it. So I think Bradley has to take this one because honestly, I got nothing. And Hunter, I'm sorry for causing this.
I remember I probably was one of the people that walked away, mostly because it wasn't like it wasn't because I wasn't into it. I think it was just because for me, just on the same level as any other movie, you're not in the right mindset or mood to watch a comedy. You want to watch this or you want to watch that. It's the same with anime. For me, I don't have a lot of newer anime experience. Basically, Hunter got me into a lot of the stuff that I've seen over the last few years. But I mean, I grew up watching a lot of animated shows and movies and stuff, but when it comes to more of the Japanese or Chinese stuff, that is amazing in itself. But that stuff I don't go out of my way to watch usually, just because there's so much going on and I'm gonna be that guy and say that I'm not the best with subtitles too. So it's, you want to watch the film, right? You want to see the crazy action that's going on, and I also have to read at the same time. So I'm like, I'm not the quickest with that. So that's probably, I mean, I know it's not a good excuse, but if that's probably the reason why it doesn't pop out at me as me wanting to watch it as much, or not this particular film, but anime films in general, just because I'm not used to it.
Also, in your defense, I used to watch like a ton of really bizarre movies on like the main TV to try to show people, and then everyone would usually walk away because it's some foreign French film from like the 60s that no one's heard about. And I'd just be like, oh, no one's watching it? What the hell? And you guys would just be like gone in the basement, and I'd be like, oh, I guess it's just me then.
I think so there's been a couple moments where I'm like, all right, I'll sit down and watch this. And usually it's like something like House, that's crazy. Like, I think it was a Japanese film. That was an insane movie. But like films that were kind of like a mixture of things. Akira was really good too. Like things that seemed like it was sort of a crossover of things, of different types of animation or something like that. I think I remember watching some of this film, but again, just like Bart, my memory. You watch so many animation films that I was like, I don't think I could. I'd have to watch a trailer or a scene or something to really remember it.
Anyways, yeah. So the film "Sword of the Stranger" is just it's a great film. Honestly, it's worth watching just for the last scene alone. If you are only able to watch the last scene, watch it. If not, if you are able to watch the full film, 100% watch it all the way through. You won't be disappointed. Other than that, Bart, what's your next film you have to talk about?
All right, so my next film is La La Land, and this is kind of almost a conversation piece between Hunter and I. We got some shared experiences that are quite something. We'll get into that probably after the movie. So we'll talk about the movie a bit first, then we can talk about those things later.
Yeah.
But the thing that just grabbed me right away was right from the get-go, the opening. You know, you got the traffic jam on this overpass in LA somewhere, and the camera kind of pans past all these cars. You know, they're all playing different kinds of music, like rock, rap. One's listening to a podcast, and then you kind of just hear some, you know, jazzy notes, and then it's kind of start to build up, and then people get out of the car and they start singing. And mind you, this is all like, I think it was just camera mounted onto a crane, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And it was just a singular shot, and it was just,
I think there was 3 hidden cuts amongst the whole scene, but for the most part, it was all pretty much one cut. Yeah.
They pulled a Birdman on me, but anyway.
Yeah.
So it was nonetheless beautifully choreographed. Like people were just getting out of the cars, dancing, singing, whatnot. At one point, they pull open like this, I don't know, moving van, and there's like a small band, someone playing bass and like the drums, and I think a flute of sorts are playing along to it. And it's just such, I don't know, like right from that get-go, you just know, like, okay, you're in for a treat, you're in for a passion project. and Damien Chazelle just directs the crap out of it, and it's great. And you're just right from the get-go into it. And I'll keep these little segments short so I can share them with Hunter because he has stuff to say and I'll have stuff to say. But yeah, Hunter, what did you think?
Well, like you said, like I think all the music is super infectious, and like you're almost like you know the lyrics when you first see the movie. Like it's just super infectious. It's super fun to watch. It's clearly an homage to that kind of style of musical from 60s, 50s, no, maybe even to like the 50s and the 40s style of musical, like Singing in the Rain. I'm blanking on the year that was from, but it's a great film. And like I said, the music's so infectious. I remember when we saw this in the theater, the dude at the end of the movie just started dancing in the aisle. Like he was full up dancing. And it was just like I was going to stay for the music, but I got so uncomfortable. This dude was high on acid or mushrooms or something, but he's just dancing in the whole time the film, like the ending credits. I'm like, what the hell is this guy doing?
And we say dancing, but it's like, your grade 9 high school stuff. Your body's just basically contorting. Like dancing is a very liberal term. Like he was just moving around.
It wasn't subtle.
It was so funny.
It was not subtle dancing at all. He was dancing for the theater to see.
Yeah.
He thought he was the show. He thought he was the reason people came to the show, other than the reason people went to the show. Like it was unbelievably uncomfortable. But other than that, yeah, that's one of the main reasons, one of the main points I have to make about this film. Sorry, just to hear from other people, Shawn and Bradley, what were your opinions on it? If you've seen it or if you haven't, what were your?
I mean, I have not seen it. Just because, like, initially when I saw trailers for that film and all the promotion for that film, I mean, it's not a film particularly that grabs my attention immediately. But at the same time, I've only ever heard really good things about it. So, I mean, maybe I should watch it. But I don't know too much about it. I just know that well, I know it won an award, so there's that. But that's about all I really know.
It almost won Best Picture.
Almost. For 30 seconds, they were like, psych. It's actually Moonlight.
For a couple minutes there, they were leaving. If they would have left, they would have won the award. If they would have left, if they wouldn't have done their speeches, they would have won the award.
Yeah, honestly. The guy was like halfway into his acceptance speech, and they're like, oh no, I misread that. I'm sorry. It's tough.
It was awful. It was like the
It was like Uncut Gems.
Just sorry to interrupt you, Bradley, but oh yeah. Well, the best part about it was the same year someone already had messed up doing the what do you call it? Steve Harvey had messed up doing an award show the same way.
Universe, right?
Miss Universe. Sorry,
yeah.
I was blanking on the name. He already messed up the same way with the Miss Universe thing, and the exact same thing happens the same year. It's like,
it's planned.
I didn't. Oh my goodness. Sorry. Let's hear from Bradley before I keep going. So, Bradley, what was your opinions on the film if you've seen it?
I had watched it. I've seen it twice, I believe, and I'm a fan of everyone in the film. Like, Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone are pretty great. Damien Chazelle is a good director. He's like my age, so it's kind of like depressing, but also cool. But I think he was even the youngest director to win Best Director for a film a couple years ago. So it was really cool to see him just get better and better, and do bigger films. And I was a fan of
Whiplash.
Whiplash, that's the one I was thinking of. Yeah. So going into this, I thought, okay, seen the trailer, it was fun. I'm not huge into musical type films, but I love music, so I was like, and I was a fan of everyone in the film, so I thought, well, why not? Watched it. It was great. Cinematography was awesome. I loved little bits. There weren't any particular. The intro, the beginning of the film was awesome. Reminded me a lot of like a callback to a lot of musical films from the 60s and 50s and stuff. So it was really cool to see that, because that's basically how a lot of, I had an ex that loved Broadway musical and musical films. So it kind of took me back to that, enjoying those kinds of films. And he did a great homage to those types of films with this one. And, there's so many different shots. Talk about a film with like an every frame a painting kind of scenario. Maybe not every frame, but like the bench scene where they're dancing around with the light, the lamplight above them and everything. That was a great scene. That sort of thing. The story itself it was great, but it kind of faltered a little bit later on. I think when they were like kind of splitting up and going their separate ways, being over dramatic or whatever. For me, it was kind of weird, but I don't know. The way it ended was kind of cool too. It wasn't another happy ending, or at least the happy ending everyone was imagining. I don't know. Maybe I'm just a fan of non-happy endings. So it's kind of cool. I like the movie though, and the coloring. The color and the cinematography in this film was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good points. Last thing I have to say is, well, does Damon Chazelle have a awesome podcast? I don't think so. Other than that, let's move on to Shawn. What's the next movie you have to you brought for us?
So I have Christopher Nolan's film Memento. It's one of his earlier films. It's a fantastic film that I think for being a Christopher Nolan film, I think a good chunk of people have either heard about it in some way, but there's a lot of people that also haven't seen it, surprisingly. It's whole, it's not really spoilers because the film goes around this and kind of explains it pretty early on because it needs to be. The whole point of the film is you kind of see shots of the movie that go through time just a little bit, and then the next shot that you see is a shot from before that. So you see scenes kind of backwards. They play out in normal time, but you see them out of order, going in reverse order, because the character in the film only remembers a certain amount of time and then he forgets it. So we're seeing it the other way from his perspective. And as that goes on, we understand why he ends up in the places he is, because every scene starts out of order. We end up being in a completely different spot, and we're like, how did we get here? And cleverly, as we go back, we understand why he's in the spot he is. So it's really, really interesting. There's a lot of cool, I think it's shot very well. Just the actual like cinematography of the film is really, really good. I remember the first shot that the movie opens up on, which is, it's not the last shot of the movie, but it ends up being basically the last area of the movie. It is a very short segment that explains everything I just said really, really easily, and it just looks fantastic as well. I remember just I remember that shot so easily in my head. But I do love the ending of the movie because it's almost, I don't know the best way to explain it, but it's almost a twist that you kind of see coming a little bit, but it still kind of takes you by surprise. It basically just reveals that everything that this character's been doing is completely pointless almost. He's chasing something that he thinks is real, but isn't really. So either way, I don't know if you guys have anything else to add to that.
So this is, sorry, just to kind of, this is the one movie I don't believe I have a lot to say about. The main thing I remember was I've seen this movie once, and the first time I saw it was in class, in a media arts class. And the one thing I remember was it was a great movie. I was super invested, and then halfway through we had to pause. Our teacher went out, grabbed pizza, came back, and then after that there was, for some reason, 7,000 announcements on the loudspeaker, and every single one of them was just blaringly loud, and you couldn't hear the movie. And then I just got lost, and I was like, please, like, we got to pause the movie or something. I can't focus when these like 900 PA announcements go on. I do remember really enjoying the film, and I do remember the ending. Yeah, I definitely remember the ending. It did come kind of out of left field for me, but that's the main reason I remember this film. This is, yeah, like I said, this is probably one of the films I have the least to say about. Other than that, yeah, let's move the conversation on to any Bart or Bradley.
Yeah, I also don't have very much to say about this movie. I watched this movie once and only once in the exact same place as Hunter in my media arts class. And outside of the announcements, what I remember quite vividly is our teacher, Mr. Morton, he got like, I don't know, 5 extra large pizzas because he's making like a party out of it. Like, he was excited to show this. We had like a period and lunch was right after. So we had like, I don't know, 2.5 hours or so to watch it. And he was excited to show this to us. He was talking it up for quite a while. And he got all those pizzas. And there were like 4 students in the class. And like nobody came to see the movie. And he got like genuinely upset that no one was eating pizza because he spent like $70 on pizza. And no one was there to eat it. And that's like the one thing I remember so vividly from that experience, I guess. Not so much the movie.
I remember eating like 40 slices of pizza just because he kept telling us that pizza was there, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna throw up if I eat another piece.
I felt so bad that no one was there to eat it because he made such an event out of it, and he seemed genuinely upset. So I was like, okay, I'll just hurt myself and eat like 25 pieces just to make him like keep him from crying or something. Like, holy hell.
I feel like everyone's experience with this movie is not, apart from Shawn's, it's like it's masked with something else that's messed up the experience for it.
Yeah, well, it kind of proves a point that I remember watching this film myself, and there was one scene that, I don't know, I got distracted by something else for like a second, and then it went to the next scene, and I had no idea what was going on, even though I'm pretty sure I was supposed to know pretty early on what was going on. And it made me think, like, if you miss a detail in this movie, it gets off track really, really fast. I think that's kind of like the one flaw with the movie. You really have to be like invested into it. So not exactly the best circumstances for you guys to watch the film, but yeah, like that's like the one thing if I had a single complaint about it, I think it definitely has a lot of details you need to pay attention to.
I think it could be seen as a flaw, but also a good thing. Like, it makes you, I think this is the beginning of Christopher Nolan's like whole pay attention to this movie the whole time, or else you're going to miss like even 20 seconds. You're going to miss someone explaining something, or something happens and you're like, wait, what? Like, as opposed to any other action movie where it's kind of easy. Christopher Nolan, this is essentially Christopher Nolan starting his whole time confusion or, timeline kind of films that he's known for now. Even when he did the Batman movies, there's still time jumps. Mm-hmm. And I remember watching, ironically enough, I didn't finish the film. Not because I didn't like it. I think I just remember something happening, so I couldn't finish it. But I remember getting halfway through it and thinking, if this guy did it in the end, I'm going to be pissed. Because I had watched Christopher Nolan movies beforehand. Like, I loved his Batman movies. I loved his, Inception. I had watched Memento pretty late, considering how old it is. And I tried watching it, and I thought, okay, black and white. No one in the movie is like wildly famous, or at least at the time they weren't. Mm-hmm. And I thought, okay, I'm going to get into this, and it didn't work out. But I liked the way it was kind of framed, where, he'd remember a day and then he'd have to go back, and he goes back like an extra scene or two, or like part of his memory comes back, and he's told what happened or this happened and who these people are. And I loved that, but I've also read things where people were like, it's all right. Like, the movie's okay. But at the same time, it's kind of like Nolan's following up his last film, essentially. He's a great director and writer, but it's like him following up the next or the previous thing. So he gets better and better.
Mm-hmm. I feel like every film he does, it's definitely just trying to like be like, oh, that film was good, but what can I do better?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, for sure. And I mean, I feel like we'll definitely talk about them in future episodes. I mean, I'm not hating. I mean, I'm sure Bart's the same way. We're not hating on Christopher Nolan just for this one bad movie experience we had. I mean, I absolutely love him. I know Bart absolutely loves him too, and we'll probably talk about him in future episodes. But it was just the one movie we had a bad experience of his with. I mean, I loved like almost every single one of all of his other films, but it's just the one bad experience we had. Other than that, I'd like to move it on to Bradley's next film. Bradley, what's your next film?
So my next film is The Discovery. Came out in 2017. It's got Robert Redford, a legend, Jason Segel, and Rooney Mara. And it's a bit of an homage to Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, in that it's sort of like a repeat, kind of like Memento, where it's like a repeat of a time period. And essentially it's sort of in the distant future, where science discovers that the afterlife exists. So a lot of the world population commits suicide because they know there's something after. So they just want to get to it. And it's even more crazy to like visually, it's crazy to think about because it's very quiet. There's not a lot of people around. It's Jason Segel and Rooney Mara basically walking around, meeting for the first time and kind of talking to the few people that they bumped into. And essentially it's them trying to talk about how life is precious, even though you know that there's something after, to enjoy what you have here, because you don't, even though you know there's an afterlife, what does it look like still? And the whole, like a lot of the population of the planet decided to just go because they're like, cool, there's something there. I don't have to worry about this, but you know, no consequences kind of thing. So it kind of questions a lot of that sort of really difficult conversation, stuff that most people are really awkward of talking about, just like right now. But it talks about death essentially, and your choice to leave, just because you know that there's something over there. And it's insane. I don't know. Maybe it was just I think because I'm a huge fan of Eternal Sunshine as well, that it reminded me a lot of that film. So I loved it right off the get-go. And then, you know, in the last like 5-10 minutes or so, they kind of reveal that, spoiler, they reveal that they're repeating this time frame that they're in. Jason Segel and Rooney Mara's characters go back to where they meet, kind of like how Jim Carrey and Kate Winslet do in Eternal Sunshine. So it messed me up in so many different ways, but I didn't watch a movie for like a month after this. It was so crazy. I don't know what if it was just something I was going through at the time, and it kind of locked in and was like, yup, don't want to think about anything serious right now. Or if it was just the movie itself, I just didn't want to watch movies. I don't know. But it was crazy. But yeah, the cinematography is kind of like Eternal Sunshine as well. It's just not bland, but like it's very not static, but like it's very just, it's not crazy. There's no crazy cinematography in it. It's just right there with the people that you're watching.
So this is kind of the one film that I had that I when I watched it, I mean, I didn't really like it when I've watched it. I thought it was kind of bland. I thought it was a little bit boring. I mean, I thought the ending and the kind of like when they explain, or when you kind of figure out where they're going, I thought that was really good. And then I realized, oh, there's a whole other hour and a half of this movie you have to sit through. This is the one movie I didn't really like. I didn't have a moment when I was like, oh, this is like a damn. Like I didn't have a damn moment. This was kind of like, when I watched this movie, I thought, you know, this was this is almost kind of like Groundhog Day, or like where, like, I mean, not with a time loop, but just kind of it fits with time, and it's less, you know, it's not as dramatic. It's funny. It has kind of a similar thing where it's like you said, every day is important. Every timeline is important, even though there is another day. I always figured just Groundhog Day is a lot better, of a film. And this is the one film I kind of like. I personally, yeah, again, I don't have a lot to say about this film, but it's again just shows how important film is, where you like, other people can have such a reaction to it, and I don't have a reaction to it. I don't know if anybody else personally didn't have, or if anybody else felt the same way you did. So that's just my opinion on the film. So let's move on to what other people had to say about it. Bart, what did you have to say about it?
Yeah, so I watched it also last night, just, you know, prepare for this podcast, because I hadn't seen it before. I hadn't heard of it. And yeah, I just put it on. I thought the first act was really, really great. The way they set it up with Robert Redford, you know, doing the interview, just kind of talking quite nonchalantly about his big discovery, and then one of the camera crew, you know, Robert Redford confirms there's an afterlife, and then the person from the camera crew comes out, he's like, thank you, and then shoots himself in the head, and you're like, damn, okay. Really sets the tone. And then you cut to Jason Segel on this, I don't know, this ferry, I guess, and he's the only one there with Isla, I think her name is, and this TV is just playing like this news report of everything that's happening, and the next day is like the 2-year anniversary of this discovery that there is like this afterlife. So people are afraid there's going to be like this mass suicide pact. So he's kind of frustrated with it because Robert Redford is his dad, and he doesn't want to really be associated with this discovery. And then Isla starts talking to him. She's like, hey, I was watching that. And he's like, okay, you know, whatever. We're the only 2 people here. He goes, sits with her. And one thing that I thought was really neat, that they established really well, is she's just there by herself, and she kind of has a headache. And then Jason Segel's like, here, I have vertigo. I'll give you a pill for it. You know, it's like just to relieve you of your headache. And he's like, why would I take a pill from some random guy? And he's like, okay, that's fair. But then she takes it anyway. And you're like, okay, it's kind of weird. And like half hour later, she tries to kill herself that exact same night. So she had no intention of living through it. So, you know, that pill could have killed her, and she could not have cared any less. I thought that was just really interesting, just to like establish where her mindset was at. And like, you know, she was already well aware that Jason Segel was going to be the last guy she was going to talk to, and she was going to die either way that night. I don't know. I thought that was really well done. I like that a lot. I guess I'm kind of going on a tangent here. Second act was like, I liked it quite a bit. Like, you know, you were talking about the sunshine of the internal mind. I kind of felt that same kind of relationship, but on more of a friendship level. So whenever they kissed, or, you know, they started to get intimate, I don't know, wasn't feeling it. Wasn't feeling the chemistry. I was feeling it on like a friendship level, but when they started like kissing, it's just like, I don't know. It just felt strange. And then one last thing before I completely go on. The 2-year anniversary, it was like hyped up to be this big like suicide pact, like, oh crap, everyone's going to kill himself on this anniversary. And then it's kind of like never mentioned. And you're like, huh, I don't know. That was just my experience with it. The ending was really cool and heartfelt, and I liked it. That you keep kind of like respawning at this one point of regret, and then once you get past it, you can kind of move on with some like subconscious memories of it that kind of guide you, but you don't really know of it. It was interesting. It was certainly interesting. It wasn't perfect, but it was definitely interesting.
Just to jump in for a second, the damn moment, there wasn't really a damn moment for me. It was more so the concept of it. So thinking like, what would I do if there was like for sure an afterlife, but there was still no for sure like, what does this look like, or an idea of what it's like to begin with. Mm-hmm. And people just quickly just decided, let's go. Like, this place is already crap. Let's go to this place, right? And it's like, oh my God. And just the whole, I think it was just a mix of having this sort of Eternal Sunshine homage or feeling to it. And then just sort of, maybe because I'm a little older, it's I've thought about, certain moments in my life kind of thing, like you said, with the moments of regret, wanting to redo certain moments of your life or not wanting to deal with certain decisions that you've made. I think that hit me harder than I'm really thinking of when I first saw it. I think that's why it hit me, and I didn't know why for a while. So that's probably why. I think that's the damn moment, the whole film, the idea of it. And that's probably why I liked it. And I love basically everyone in the film.
Mm-hmm. When I watched this film originally, I didn't really know what to expect. Like, I kind of expected it to be more of a, like, its first initial section of the film was kind of what I was expecting throughout the rest of it. That second act of the film kind of took a turn for me. That's kind of where I think they did a lot more of that, as you said, Bradley, the Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind there. That's kind of where it had a lot of those similar themes to that movie. And I wasn't really expecting it to go there. I was kind of expecting it to go more into like the overall like mental state of people with just, more detail about the discovery they had, or kind of more into the science of it. And I mean, they did have that whole segment where they were getting to see a little bit visually into the afterlife through the little monitor that they had. And I was expecting a lot more of that from the film, I think, because, and you said with that whole damn moment, how it didn't really have a damn moment per se in the film exactly, but just kind of the concept overall. And I think that's a great strength of the film. But I feel like that little bit of the romance that it had might have taken away a little bit from having that be like I feel like I would have remembered it more, because when you mentioned you were going to be talking about it today, I had to kind of rack my brain for a minute to be like, that sounds so familiar. What? Have I watched that film? I don't know. Have I watched that film? And I had to like look it up, and I'm like, oh yeah, that film. Because like I could not really remember it. I had to like think about it for a while. And yeah, I kind of had a similar experience at the end of that movie, though, because the ending's really well done. And the concept is something that is really powerful, honestly, just overall. But I think the film didn't stick with me fully because it had a few other parts to the plot that I think, while not terrible, not exactly needed for its end message completely. At the same time, it still was kind of needed a little bit to tell its story, but I don't think it needed to delve that deep into it.
For me, it was like, it's a fight between I hate that I love it and I love that I hate it sort of thing. Like, I don't hate certain aspects of it, but there's parts where I'm like, I personally, like, I don't think they could have improved on what they did, or they could have. But for me, I'm like, for me, this part kind of missed the mark for a few minutes, or this thing. It could have been better, but I think the idea of it and the way it was executed was pretty cool. And yeah, the relationship between the two main characters is just like, I agree with you guys. It wasn't as romantic or as it should have been, or it could, or it wasn't as felt as romantic. It felt more like just two friends trying to help each other and figure out how to fix their own mistakes, I guess. And
that's what I got out of it.
Yeah.
If they went a little bit more like into it, like with a lot more development towards that, maybe it would have felt a bit more necessary to the overall story. But
just doing a little bit of research, figuring out that it was written and directed by Charles McDowell, which is Malcolm McDowell
son.
from
yeah,
it's wild. I saw that before I watched it, and I was like, what? I don't even know he had a son.
I was like, okay, maybe he's trying to, like, I don't know his previous work or what he's like as a director or writer or whatever, but doing research and finding out that he's related to Malcolm McDowell, who's in
Clockwork Orange.
Clockwork Orange,
yeah. I'm like, maybe he's trying to live up to some kind of crazy conceptual, filmmaking career or something. I don't know or not, but either way, I still enjoyed it.
So yeah, guys. Oh, sorry. Finish your last thought there.
I was just gonna say, like, the feeling of it was more for me afterwards. It was the damn afterwards. I'm like, the lasting effect it had on me was the moment.
All right. So yeah, we're just running out of time there. Sorry to interrupt you guys, but yeah. So that concludes kind of this episode 4. Those are our movies that we kind of had a damn moment to. I know it's going to be different for everyone out there. I mean, yeah, I mean, between all 4 of us, we had kind of a varying opinion on genres and whatnot. Hopefully we gave you something new to watch. Hopefully you enjoyed today's episode. And with that, I'd like to conclude episode 4. Thanks for watching.